Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Two Unholy Healers podcast. This is our second time back for season 2. and I'm Keryn Lee, and I'm here with Collean O'Brien, and we are the Two Unholy Healers, the self-appointed Two Unholy Healers. And yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching later, because we know quite a few of you jump on later to the recordings. We're super grateful to have you with us, and we have a great topic for today. We are going to be talking about how do you measure success? And of course, this is going to be different for everyone because we all have different ideas of what success is. We all have different dreams and desires, and we all have different pasts, and the past can definitely give us an individual perception of what is going to be successful for us. So is it to prove something to a parent, or is it a measure of society standards? Like if you've got the Ferrari and the fancy house, that's successful. So it's a huge topic, but we're going to take 20 minutes today to have a bit of a chat about that. So Colleen, away you go.
When you said the past, I was like, ooh, yeah, like how does that limit your idea of success, right? Because I think so often, even with like, whose success are you actually working towards? Like, is it actually what you want, or is it what you've been trained to want, or what everybody else has taught you to believe that you want? And then when you don't get it, like how do you deal with failure as well, right? Like, is your success actually just, oh, I don't want to fail?
Yeah, exactly. I love that question. Whose success are you, whatever you said, whose success are you striving for? Yeah, great question. And we could all take a moment just to ponder that and look at, I mean, we hear all the time about people being, oh, I'm going to be a doctor because my father was a doctor, or we have, medical professionals in the family. Like we hear stories like that all the time. So yeah, absolutely. And that's a probably, an obvious situation, but there's a lot more subtle layers to that as well. Like just an odd comment here and there. Like this is probably a silly example, but it's just popping into my head. And I remember when I was about 16, 17, I started teaching myself guitar. And I remember my dad saying, oh, there's no musicians in our family. And that was kind of implanted in my head. And it definitely sabotaged me at times throughout my life through my musical journey, because I won't go into details, but yeah, that definitely had an impact. But there was a belief that he had about music, which possibly limited me in that field in some way. But interestingly, I found out only this year that my grandma used to play banjo, so, and his mum. So I'm like, hang on a minute, you said, so little subtle things like that can also have an impact on what we are successful in, what we believe success is about, and what we choose to work towards to gain that success.
And are you trying to be successful in somebody else's eyes?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so much of the marketing is, like, oh, you want to make, 10K a month, like, because it's a nice round number. And it's something that most people are like, oh, this isn't a side hustle anymore. If I'm making that amount of money, that could really support, my expenses and needs and stuff. But like, if you don't care to make that much, or if you only really need 5K a month, you're like, hey, that would be really great. And then somebody else sort of like pisses in your cornflakes because you're like, oh, that's only 5K. Like,
Yeah.
you're like, wait, I was really feeling successful. But now you're like, so that definition, it can be so individual and so mutable as well. And so we've really got to be discerning of like, how do I want to feel? right? Like, so how do you measure something subjective as feeling, right? Like the
Yeah.
money's really easy. There's a number on there,
Yeah.
like, or how few hours you work, right? Or how many clients you serve, or how far out, when's your wait list? How far out are you booked? Like, these are all really easy ways to sort of telegraph to the world, hey, I'm successful.
Yeah.
But is that really success? Does, when the rubber meets the road, when your bed hits the head at the end of the day, like, does that what success feels to you? Or is that exhausting? Is that just leading to burnout?
Yeah, exactly. I totally get that, because when I reached that peak in my business a few years ago and had everything that I thought was success, all the clients, the money, the flow, the healing studio, the book, they were all the things that I thought were success for me. But once I reached that, something actually shifted. And as you know, my business has changed a lot over the last couple of the years. And one of the things I really had to look at is, what do I actually want? And what actually makes me feel not successful, but complete? What makes me feel fulfilled and that I'm contributing in some way that is actually honoring of me and, um, just what I want to create in the world. And I think that is actually more important than some result, because like you said, it's immutable, it's changeable, it could change on any given day. But with all the marketing and stuff like that we have now, it's result driven. You can reach the 10K, or you have some goal, that if you achieve that, then you've got your your success or whatever. But there's an interesting story that was told in one of the Access Consciousness classes. I think Dane here was talking about Gary Douglas, who's founder of Access, and he was telling a story about many years ago. Gary would make decisions based on the energy, whether it felt light. He didn't have a result; it was just an energy. He might have had a target, a direction that he wanted to head in, but then he would follow the energy. And Dane used to think, why is he making that decision? Like, he would be really judgmental about it. But he said 10 years later, when other things started showing up, he had the realization that, wow, if Gary didn't choose that 10 years ago, we would not be here now, or this would not be showing up now. So that, I think, to me, that's an example of when we have a sense of direction, but without necessarily knowing all the individual pieces, and we follow the energy, the lightness, the gut feeling, whatever it is for each person, without knowing what that result's going to be, that can really create something so much greater that we can't see now what that's going to be. You have to literally start taking some of those preliminary steps so that something else can open up that is not visible right now. So yeah, I thought that was a great story.
And I loved how you had said, what's going to make me feel fulfilled, what's going to make me feel complete. And I think that really speaks to it. The success has to come from within.
Yeah.
Like, it really has to be for you. And like that story, the destination may not be clear. Like, we really kind of have to step in faith, and bet on ourselves, to be like, hey, this is the direction I'm heading in. Now, I, of course, love keeping score, love taking score, love evaluating along the way. Like, where am I? What are we doing? Like, if I'm on a car trip, like, hey, how much gas do I have? Do I have to stop here? Like, do I need a bathroom? Do I want a snack? So I think it's really also important to have, always be keeping, hey, I've got to measure how far I've come, and where I'm going. Like, what do I need to do? So, like, how do you balance that, right? Like, maybe I'm just far too grounded and practical to be able to just be like, oh, I'm just going to follow the energy and trust that the universe is going to show up for me.
Yeah, Well, I was just going to say, but I mean, don't look at that as, I guess the question would be what's right about that you're not seeing, because some people just are more practical and more structured in their approach, but you can still get a sense of, yeah, this feels like the right direction, or a sense of what you want to create. And to me, those things you mentioned, like the snacks along the way and the fuel and all that, no matter what it is what we're creating, we still have to make decisions along the way. And it might not be quite as structured, or whether that's the right word or not, that in the way you do it, but there's still choices we have to make on the way. And if I use the example of when I opened my healing studio, the goal was, hey, let's open a healing studio. So that was my sort of desire, let's say. But along the way, there was, well, where am I going to do it? Which building do I want? What color shall I paint the walls? What did I want to do the floors? Like, I had to do a whole fit out. Then there was, what's the sign writing going to be like all of that. So there was little steps along the way, but I did not really perceive a lot of that in the beginning. It's just like, hey, let's open a studio. That's where the lightness was for me. And I'm not really a details person. I'm just a throw spaghetti at the wall and let's see what sticks kind of person. Like, I have too much immediate energy. Like, for those of you who know the tarot and are familiar with the wands energy, that's definitely me. I'm all fire and all go, but I can peter out quickly if my imagination and inspiration and all that is not activated. So yeah, I'm definitely just a take action person. So the details are not as important for me, but it doesn't mean that I don't have to also stop along the way and make some of those decisions about how much fuel am I going to put in the car. I might go about it in a little bit different way than you, but we still have to make those decisions along the way, you know.
And I remember those days and hearing those stories and trying to hope that my face was like, wow, that's really great. I'm really supportive, thinking to myself, I would be white knuckling this the whole way. Because if it were me, because I'm very a bottom up, I'm a very detailed person. I'm like, okay, how do we build from the foundation? And it sounds more like you're top down. You're like, here's the big idea, and then everything else is just gonna, I'll figure it out when I get there. And I love the tarot analogy because I think if we're gonna go astrology too, you're a fire sign as well, right? Yeah. So I'm a double Capricorn, so I am super grounded. I'm all swords and pentacles. Like that's my jam. Like, so
that's so interesting. And you know what is interesting? I often have a lot of swords energy people around me, and like my oldest son, for example, and a couple of my friends, very swords energy. And it's interesting because I find the level of intelligence and detail of these people, like I think because I've had so many around me, I do have an understanding of that energy. In the beginning, I found it challenging. Like, my ex was a very sword sort of person, very intellectual, very smart, but could often be very critical. But what I learned over time was he just sees the world different to me. I don't want to go in and explain it. We're getting way off topic here. But I really, in the end, I found that energy actually complemented me because I'm not that. And once I learned to see how that energy works, it's like, okay, now I can work with this energy, which is probably why we have such a great relationship. We do kind of complement each other in many ways. Because I have a real grasp of that energy now, which is great. Like you said, you'll probably look at me and think, oh my God, she's all over the place. And I am, but that's how I roll.
Well, and that's knowing yourself and knowing how you can create and how that can lead to success. I mean, that's a very supportive energy, even though the approach is different, the details are different. Yeah. It's still you opened that studio, and then there was a little bit of like, okay, now I did it, now what, right? Like
Yeah, see, that's the thing. That's when I got bored,
Yeah.
right? When the challenge was over, then it's like, oh, I've been there, done that. What now? So yeah, and I think that's the problem with me. I don't have that long-term commitment with something if I'm not constantly engaged. Now, if I look back now and said, and if I already had another goal in place, perhaps I could have perhaps I could have continued in that direction and done more. However, what I did get out of that was, let's deconstruct the whole thing. And that's putting it very elegantly. And it was not elegant. Let's deconstruct the whole thing and let's create something different in a different way. And it took me a while to really grasp that. But now what that's given me is a different perspective of success. Oh, I thought it was going to look like this, but it's actually, a lot of that was not my version of success. And so what I've got out of that is really just being more present with what is my version of success. And it looks different to what I thought it did. So yeah, it was a big learning, that one.
And, you got to learn by doing, right? You could read as
Yeah.
many self-help books, you could do as many turnkey things, you could take a whole lot of classes, but someone else's success, even if you do it lockstep with them, is not going to be your success unless it's coming from within. And I love that you had that goal, that you went after it, you achieved it, and that you were able to embrace the messy destruction, right? Destruction is also a creation energy.
Yeah.
And so it might not have looked successful from the outside, but you absolutely were successful in making that change. And I think that's also the challenge too, when it doesn't look like success to anybody else. Like,
Oh,
yeah, how do you continue to trust in yourself that, like, yep, this is it, this is where I'm going. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I know I had a lot of family members and probably a few friends who, after 3 years, when I said that I was closing the healing studio, I could just see the look of horror on their faces, because, like, hey, well, you open something like this and then, 10 years down the track, you'll be successful, or something. But yeah, that just wasn't the case. It's like, no, 3 years, I'm done. What's next? And I could just see their faces. I could feel them just thinking, what's she doing? So
Because
yeah,
it
and
does
that
seem counterintuitive, right?
it
Like,
does.
yeah.
It does, because it's not the traditional perception of what success is, or to open a business and then, have it last 10, 20, however many years. That's a measure of success in our society. Perhaps not so much now, but it certainly was back in the day.
Well, I think
So
it also depends on the business, right? Like,
yeah,
if it was a restaurant and it was open and closed in less than 5 years, well, that's sort of the normal cycle for most restaurants, right?
yeah,
But, you know, healing, having a treatment center, what is that cycle, right? But yeah, there is sort of this perception of failure if you don't go the distance, right?
yeah,
Even if
yeah,
it feels horrible and you hate going in every day, and
yeah,
but no, you're successful because you were an operating brick and mortar thing for
yeah.
X amount of years. Like, that's life's too short to be like, hey, I had my fun and now I want to do something else, and so I need to free up the energy that I'm spending here keeping this in place to create something greater.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm still healing. That's the thing. Like, I still have that business, but it's just morphing into something different. And at this point, it feels like I don't know what it is becoming yet, because what I would like to see is that it goes beyond something that I thought was possible, which means going beyond this reality's perspective of a healer. And I definitely have some little ideas and stuff about that, but it's not really manifesting. Uh, it's not grounded, it's not solid yet, and I don't know what it is yet, but I get the sense of the energy of it. So I think that's exciting, because I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know if it's going to be successful. I don't know what it will look like, but it's definitely the next challenge.
And how can I help support you bring that down to earth? me
Ah,
me and my grounded goat energy. Like, yeah, I can climb up the mountain, man, but I'm not jumping into the air with you in the fire. Like,
yeah, but you know what? That's the beauty of it, because sometimes we have conversations and you will say something that is grounding, or that is, and not in a way to pull me back down, but in a way to look at something in a bit different perspective. And I think that's possibly where this complementing energy comes in, because sometimes something you say might just give me an idea, or a different potential, something that I haven't thought of, so that then I can run, take that next step, whatever that may be. So I see that as a huge contribution. And I think we kind of do it organically. We've never had this conversation before. So I think it happens very organically. Maybe later we sort of look back and think, oh, yeah, okay, that was that. But yeah, it's definitely been a contribution.
well, and there have been a number of times where I can kind of see that shift. Like, it's like a toggle switch goes on, and you're like, oh, like I hadn't thought of it that way before.
Yeah,
Ooh. And it's like I just sort of like dangled a new shiny thread in front of you, and you're like, let me see where that goes.
yeah,
And I don't think anything of it. That just comes naturally to me, of you and I, having known one another, having a conversation, and then you're
yeah.
like, oh, that's brilliant. You should be
Yeah.
a consultant. You should do this for everybody. And I'm like, what did I just do? I just
I say that to you all the time. You should be a consultant or something. I don't know what sort of consultant or what it would be, but whatever that is definitely magical. And yeah, like you said, you do it without thinking about it. So, as sometimes what we do that's the most ease for us is one of our greatest capacities. But then we go down the road of, well, what does that even look like? How do you market something like that? Or hey, come and have a session with me. I don't really know what I do, but
exactly. Just trust me. Like, it'll work. Just
yeah,
trust
yeah,
me. Yeah. Like yeah, that's great marketing. Trust me, sis. Like, what? No, that's not. Yeah. So but that's part of the genius of you having that idea, you recognizing a capacity. And as much as we talked about, hey, success might not look like success to other people, sometimes your success is recognized by other people that you don't even realize.
yeah, exactly, exactly. That is absolutely correct. So that feels like a good place to leave it
It
today. Is there anything
does.
else
It
you had
does.
to say?
Yes. I think you have got a really exciting class coming up in 2 weeks, if you wanted to invite people to that.
Sure. I have a free class coming up. It's called Melt Your Money Blocks, and it's on Wednesday, the 11th of December, Adelaide time, Australia. And it'll be evening, or I think it's early in the morning if you're in the States. But anyway, you can check my website for that. And yeah, it's just going to be a free class. It's only an hour, but really it's just to get some energy moving and clearing before Christmas. As we come into the Christmas season or the holiday season, people have stuff coming up around money. There's a little bit more stress and pressure on everyone. So I just thought, let's just get in there and bust some of those blocks, and just have some fun. And this is not a sales pitch for another class or anything. I do have other classes coming up, but this is just, hey, let's spend an hour together and let's just clear some stuff and hang out for an hour.
Yeah, I signed up, even though it will be 3:30 in the morning where I am on the East Coast of the United States if I show up live. But yeah, so I'm really excited for it. It's a great opportunity to hang out with Keryn some more, and yeah, just set yourself up for the new year. I think the timing is great. So we'll make sure to put the link to that event in the pinned comment. We'll update the description below as well for those of you who are watching the replay. And yeah, we hope to see you there, and
Yeah.
we'll see you in 2 weeks as well for our next podcast episode as well.
Yes, I think it's the 12th of December, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
We
Well,
look
12th of
forward-
December, Australia times, the 11th of December here in the US. It's every 2 weeks. It's every Wednesday
every
night
2
here in the
weeks.
UA. I was so good for like almost 25 minutes, and then my lips just decided not to speak anymore.
Yeah, we are here every 2 weeks. If you miss us, you can catch the recording. And if you have questions, you can always send questions in. We love to hear what you guys have to say. And sometimes your questions bring up great topics as well. So yeah, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, Colleen. And we look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. Thanks, Keryn. Thanks for
Thanks,
liking and
everyone.
subscribing. And yeah, we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye-bye.